Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are playing kind of like what people would describe as a legacy scam deck, which is generally what it's called when you play the evoke creatures with ways of blinking them or so on and so forth. Now this one is going pretty heavy on that. So we're essentially trying to get Solitude, Fury or Grief going, and then we either ephemerate them, or even better than that, we cast Brought Back. So Brought Back is white, choose up to 2 target permanent cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn, return them to the battlefield tap. So it's possible to evoke Fury and Grief, or Fury and Solitude, and then bring them both back. And that should be game against a lot of decks, to be honest. This feels like it's kind of built in mind with the initiative, being able to sort of do these big splashy plays that kind of get rid of what our opponent's doing and then go over the top. We've got a few things to sort of facilitate this, so Fable the Mirror Breaker to help us find the right bits and pieces. This is also great because it copies any of our come into play creatures. That's going to be pretty tasty. Got a few swords to Plowshares to try and pick off creatures. Tidehollow Sculler to interfere with our opponent's hand. Hidetsugu Consumes All. I imagine this is for the elf matchup more. So you want to be able to blow up some cheap creatures, but it's also going to be able to kill Delvers and Deathrite Shamans, Dragon's Rage Channeler, whilst exiling graveyards and stopping Murktide coming down. So it's got a reasonable amount of utility across the board there, I'd say. It's not looking spectacular against the initiative to me, but we'll see how that goes. And so we have this card, which I'd not actually seen before until somebody sent me this deck list. So this is a 4-mana, 3/3 Death Touch haste creature. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent is the Monarch, create a 1/1 black assassin creature token with Death Touch and haste. So it gets the Monarch, and it also is good at taking the Monarch back, which is quite relevant considering Initiative is the most played deck in the meta at the moment. Now, what's really key about this deck is in the top right hand corner. So it's a red card, a white card, and a black card. That means it pitches to Grief, Solitude, and Fury. That's pretty much the reason that's in the deck. This gives you the flexibility of pitching, same way as Sculler is a 2-color card that can pitch to either Solitude or Grief, and Hidetsugu Consumes All can pitch to both of these as well. To round out this plan of multicolored stuff to pitch, we have Showdown of the Skalds. So this is a 4-mana Saga enchantment. It exiles the top 4 cards of your library, and then you get to play those over the next 2 turns, including the turn you're in. And then in the second and third phase, you get counters on creatures when you're playing spells. So this is going to be a little bit of a card advantage engine, but most of the time we're going to be using this to pitch to some of our guys. But what we can do is when this Saga ticks down and goes away, it's a permanent card, so we can bring it back with Brought Back, which is some nice tech there. And yeah, that's kind of more or less what we're doing here. It's kind of doing its own big plan in a big way. So all of our mana base, apart from 1 swamp and 1 mountain, are tapping. That's not true, actually. We got a couple of Badlands as well. So the white might prove difficult sometimes, which is going to be interesting to see. But we've got a Triome that's on color, which is nice. But that's pretty much it for the main deck. We're trying to do not a super duper broken thing, but quite a powerful thing that if people are just playing to the board rather than trying to mess with people's hands and spells on the stack, this is going to be very powerful. So if we're looking at elves, we should be pretty good against elves. If we're looking about the initiative, I imagine we're probably okay because we can kill their guys and present a big threat that actually, Fury can tussle with the threats that our opponent is making. Grief has Menace, so it can attack and get back the initiative. This card is going to be good at taking back the Monarch and doing some stuff, but it's probably just getting pitched anyway. And if we can stabilize and get a Fable or the Mirror Breaker going, then we'll be absolutely golden. This will also help us cast some of our spells because it is technically mana ramp, because every time you attack with your Goblin token, you get a treasure. So it feels like it all kind of gels together. I've been messing around myself with some of these sort of scammy type shells. Haven't quite gotten to a spot where I want with some of them, but this is certainly an interesting list. And I saw it and thought, you know what, I'm going to give this a go today. Sideboard-wise, we got some pretty powerful cards. We got Stony Silence. This is quite hard to deal with permanent because enchantments are probably the easiest permanent to defend at the moment. And it's just a Null Rod, but that's going to be pretty good against a lot of matchups, like things like 8-cast and all the Storm decks. We've got 5 pieces of Graveyard Hate, 3 Leylines and 2 Surgicals. Interesting number to me, but I guess they can kind of do different things as well. But this is what we've been, this is what the list that was sent to me was. So we're going to see how this plays. I guess you can board in Surgicals in some places where you wouldn't board in Leyline. But then you also have 5 spells when you do need them. A couple of Pyroblasts and a Red Elemental Blast because, you know, we're going to need to be able to get through some counter spells with this deck. And that's going to help us. A couple of Meltdowns to go with our Stony Silence because we're going to need to blow up some artifact decks somewhere on the line. A Wear Tear is just a flexible removal spell for other permanents and like things like artifacts and enchantments. And a couple of Torpor Orb, which is an interesting one to me because obviously we're kind of trying to leverage these come into play effects. But I guess sometimes the Torpor Orb is going to be just better. So things like Doomsday, I think this is the matchup where you want this because you can play this and then you can just play out a guy that's like massive. And that's probably going to be pretty good against the Doomsday player because if you clock them, they're going to struggle to present a pile that can win in the time that you're giving them. Like, we're not going to want this against Elves because we're going to want to be using our Fury. We're not going to want it against the Initiative. So I think this is pretty much just for, like, Thassa's Oracle decks. But I could be mistaken there, but we'll see how the day goes. All right, that's the deck. It looks pretty fun, pretty wild. And we're just going to give it a go and see how we fare. Before we jump into the league, let me just say, likes, comments, subscribes. They don't cost you anything, but they really help me out. If I can hit 1,000 subscribers, I can start getting some money back, which means I can play more wild stuff because I don't have to worry about the cost of my play points. So that's quite nice. And if you do that, it'll help me out. All right, let's jump into a league with this sort of Mardu scam deck, I suppose. So we're on the play here. We don't have the mana to really support this hand, unfortunately, so we're going to have to mulligan it. This is a little bit better. I think we can keep this, lead out on the... probably on the Marsh Flats here, so I think we say keep, and we're probably putting back the... this is kind of awkward because we don't have the white for the Brought Back. This is certainly an issue here. But if we find the mana for the Brought Back, it's going to be absolutely brutal. So maybe we're supposed to keep it. Tricky. It's tricky to know which of these two to put back, to be honest. Like, this is the highest upside. This is just a nice, safe thing we can do. We already have the Fury for removal if we need it, so I think we can probably bin off the plow and hope that we don't regret it. We can fire off a Grief turn 1, but I'd rather try and get our bits and pieces going, so maybe we can get a really, really sick Brought Back. Like if we have another fetch land, well, we don't even need another fetch land, we can do this and get a rampant growth out of it at the same time. Okay, our opponent isn't playing to the board yet, which is good. This gives us time to try and assemble our unfair thing. So this mountain is pretty bad for us. So I think we just play this out for now. So a black or a red card, or a land that gets us white would have been great there. And there's a Saga. Sure. Let's see what we get here. A Sculler. So this is probably worth firing off, I think. So I think we want to get a white source here that can't be wastelanded, so we're going to get the plains here. Are we getting stifled? Yikes, that's very bad for us. Yeah, we're in a bit of a bind here. And they got a wasteland to follow up with. Sure. They're really going heavy on the mana denial here. So I did mention at the top I wasn't a big fan of the mana base. And we're certainly getting shown that I was right to be fearful of it. A source to Plowshares that we're not casting. Yikes. So our opponent might be getting a Dreadnought here. If they do get a Dreadnought, we need to find a plow very quickly. Okay, they're getting a Mox Diamond, sure. Getting rid of a Tabernacle. We haven't really shown them any creatures, and they can always get it back with their life from the loan when they need to. Another Urza Saga. I have to imagine they're going to start making creatures with this one, though. It's back to us. A basic plains. This is good. Can't be wastelanded. And it means that Source of Plowshares is live now. We just need another white source. And we can cast Fury and Grief in the same turn and get them both back with Brought Back if we find a white source here. Now, it'd be nice to have a target for the Grief. For the Fury. But we'll see how we go. A Marsh Flats. Okay, we're going to play this out. We're going to play around Stifle this time. So we're just going to say go. If our opponent taps down. Now they can make an Urza Saga token and leave up Stifle here, which is a real pain. So I think we have to crack this now, just in case we get Pithing Needled here. We've got Stifle. They do not have a Stifle. So I think we just need a plains here because we know our opponent's got these wastelands. What are they going to get off of their Urza Saga? Another Mox Diamond. Okay, that's not too scary. Sure. So they're basically, their mana base can be quite greedy because they've got all these Mox Diamonds in their deck. Wowzers. Many Mox Diamonds. So these are 5 power guys now. So I think we plow this one now. Then we can Fury away the other one. Let's see what we get here. Okay, so I think we lead out with this one. Pitching the Sculler. Shadow of a Doubt. Players can't search libraries this turn. Wasn't planning to. Probably should have put these the other way around, trigger-wise. Okay, so we'll take this Exploration out. So our opponent can make a 20/20 next turn. That's a little bit annoying. So I think we cast this, exiling the Fury here. And we cast Brought Back, targeting our 2 guys. Yep, this card we know about. So this creature does not fly. So we're probably getting 20/20 in the very near future here. We need to find a plow, really. But they can just Life from the Low back. So we're going to be in a bit of trouble here. Savai Triome. So they're just going to make their 20/20 and kill us, I think. I don't... Because they've got the Life from Alone, they're not going to play around what we do. I think we just attack with both of our guys first. Like, they can make the 20/20 and block here. They probably won't. They'll just take the damage because they're on a lot of life. And then they'll make the guy end turn. So our out here is cycling this for Solitude. Now, giving them 20 life when they can just Life from the Loam and get it back again is not going to be great for us. 1 away, sure. So they're going to make the 20/20 and we're going to concede here. All right. That was pretty bad for us. But these Meltdowns look pretty good against the Azure Saga deck. The Wear Tear seems fine. Don't think we want to go all the way into Stony Silence though. The Graveyard Hate seems pretty decent. And then what are we looking at really? Hidetsugu Consumes All is kind of going to be doing a similar job to the Leylines here. So I think we'd rather have those than Leylines, thinking about it. Being able to blink some stuff here is going to be useful. How good is the Fury going to be? Probably less useful. Some of these other pieces. Fable Mirror Raker is going to be getting there. Like the Fury is basically just going to become Meltdowns and stuff. So I'm probably fine cutting the Furies for this matchup. And then maybe we're cutting... we kind of need to keep the cards that are just good. Like the Grief isn't amazing either. It's fine on turn 1. On a turn 2, sorry. Look at Showdown of the Skalds, maybe? Kind of tempted to keep 1 Fury in still. Possibly over a Showdown. Or maybe over a Grief. No, I think we're better off just using our Meltdowns. A little bit tricky. Might be hard to cast this Showdown of the Skalds. Maybe we can board that one out. Let's try this. So this hand doesn't really play Magic, so we haven't got any mana sources, so we need to mulligan this one. This also doesn't really have a sufficient mana, so we need to mulligan again. Like, this is probably better than going to 4. Yikes. Okay, I guess we're keeping this one. We get rid of 2 of our lands. So now our opponent's playing Stifle and Shadow of a Doubt. We kind of want this for a white source potentially, so we kind of don't want to crack it for a while. But if our opponent plays something that makes us want to crack it, at least it's in play there. Mox Diamond. And there's a Saga. So they're going to be making tokens from turn 2. It's a Sylvan Library. A Life from a Loam. Okay, so non-basics are not something we get to have this game. Alright, all the Mox Diamonds. Good time to draw a Meltdown. Let's see what we have. Queen Marchesa. Like, it does some stuff. Lets us draw some cards, but I suspect we're going to be under the gun from these Saga tokens. Pretty sharpish. And they're not going to be little boys either. So I'm not really sure we can afford to give our opponent the Monarch. Yikes. So just going to make a Saga token our turn, as expected. They didn't play another land though, so the Meltdown here would be very good. Basic land though, I'll certainly take this. So we can Showdown of the Skalds next turn, and that should hopefully get us somewhere. This one's going to be quite large hitting us, so it's going to be 3, 4, 5 when it attacks us. Now we're in a situation of, do we crack this Bloodstained Mire to play around Pithing Needle, or do we hold it to play around Wasteland? We know that they have access to Wasteland, so I think we just have to let them get the Pithing Needle, if that's the thing that they're doing here. Sure, another Mox Diamond. Oh, this Meltdown is big game, I would say. So this is going to come and clonk us for a big chunk. Drawing Meltdown would be nice here. Did not draw the Meltdown. It's kind of okay. So let's see what happens when we crack this. We're getting stifled. We are getting stifled. So we can play our Scrubland and cast Brought Back to get back our Bloodstained Mire for next turn. But that kind of leaves us in a similar place. It's not great, is it? Alright. So it's tapped as well, so they can Wasteland us off of it. Or they can Wasteland the Scrubland and then stifle the other one. We're not looking very happy right now. But if we draw a Meltdown, we probably win the game. That's sort of the level we're working at right now. So this is going to be a Life from Loam, getting the Wasteland back. Yep, and 2 Azure Sagas. Yep. So we're going to take 10 this turn. And we have 1 turn to draw Meltdown now. If we draw like a Solitude or something, that works for us. It will keep us alive at least. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. This gives us a chump blocker, but then we die. Okay. Our deck did not do anything that round. I don't think the mana base is quite where I would want to be in this deck right now, but obviously it's only one game. We did play against the Stifle Wasteland Loam deck, so that's always going to be a tough sell for us. All right, let's go on to another round and see if we can do our thing. Okay, we're on the play here. We've got like some of our pitch casting things. We just need to draw one of our 7 ways of getting some value from it. I think we can keep this hand though. We can play a Sculler on turn 2, which is nice. And we definitely have the white sources that we can do a Brought Back if necessary. Now this might be too slow in the current format, but if we draw Ephemerate or Brought Back, then we get to really go wild anyway. Bauble. This is Delver or 8 cast most likely. Could be the Epic Storm. Okay, it's looking more like Delver now. Grief is a pretty nice one. Alright, I think it's stifled again. I don't think so. So I think this time we want another white one. I think we get a Scrubland because we're going to play out another Scrubland here. So they can't get us off of the colours we have. Sure, let's throw out the Sculler. If we have 2 removal spells in hand, this doesn't do a great deal. Okay, they're going to hide the thing they want with a Brainstorm. That's okay, it's them using their Brainstorm suboptimally. We at least get to have a look at their hand and see what's going on. I have to imagine they didn't have a threat, because I think you just snap off the threat on turn 1 if you have it, unless they're not Delver. All these cards could still be Epic Storm cards. Okay, that is not Epic Storm. So what are we worried about here? We can't take... If we take a Bolt, they just get the other Bolt back. We can take the Force of Will and pressure them into doing some sort of Bolt trick to get it back. I suspect they'll just be happy to Ponder and Bolt this turn. There's a Ponder. And there's a Bolt. So they have a Force of Will in their hand as well. A Sword to Plowshare. So if we play out our Plateau here, it means the next turn we can start hard casting some of our guys, but does expose us to Wasteland slightly. I think that's fine. Like, we have a creature covered. We're sort of in a weird holding pattern a little bit. Okay, so there's the Volk we know about. So they got Force of Negation, Lightning Bolt, Force of Will in their hand. Murktide Regent, sure. That is a creature, isn't it? So we're going to plough this at end step and leave up the Plateau to make them at least think about Pyroblast. So use the Force of Will in this, they're probably going to have to use their Force of Negation. They might have other blue cards, to be fair. But they can't use Force of Negation on this. Expressive Iteration is gone. Okay, so still have their Force of Negation, which can't hit our Solitude. Another Plough is interesting. I think we just Plough it in their upkeep. They can hard cast the Force of Negation here. Yeah, maybe that wasn't the best. I think we evoke this now. So if we had a Brought Back this turn, that'd be quite nice. They could play a threat out and we can just get it. And now we're looking to draw a land to deploy our Grief. We've kind of roadblocked the whole turn of there, so if we can get a land, we'd be alright. So we have these Furies that we can pitch if they make some like little X ones like this. Expressive Iteration. So if this puts a land into their graveyard, then they have... Okay, let's put a creature in. So 1, 2, 3, 4 times. This is going to be a 3/3. Mystic Sanctuary. They're putting the EI back on top, which is going to shrink this guy to a 1/1. I'm sure they don't particularly mind. A Fury. Is it worth us casting a Fury right now to kill this guy? I don't think so. I think we're just so far behind now. Our deck just feels like it's designed to cheese people out, and we kind of have missed the cheese window quite badly. Sure. They left a card on top of their library, which doesn't bode well for us. Dragon's Rage Channeler. Sure. So we're hoping to draw like an Ephemerate or something like that here. Or a Brought Back. Let's see how we do. Solitude. That doesn't really do it. You know, our hand is just really bad. Like, without our things to do it or the mana to cast stuff, we're just getting absolutely ruined here. Took all the damage on this. Yeah, we're having to 2-for-1 ourselves to kill their 1/1s, so we're just going to get absolutely ruined here. Our opponent's just playing better cards, really. Like, our cards are decent, but they need... As a strategy on their own, they require a lot more than what we have right now. We kept this hand trying to draw into one of our 7 like Ephemerate effects, or into the Fable the Mirror Breaker, but I think we're just going to get absolutely smashed up here by a Murktide as well. It's going to be relatively large. Yep, so there's the Murktide that we called, and they've done it in a way that they can keep their Dragon's Rage Channeler being a 3/3. So Fable the Mirror Breaker now doesn't actually do it. I think we have to hold on to it as something to pitch to the Fury next turn, in the hopes that we can draw a Brought Back or an Ephemerate. They have a Lightning Bolt, so we're going to be effectively on 10. So we drew the thing we were hoping to have here. Probably these things and the blasts. All of our pitch elementals look pretty good. The Sculler looks bad. The Hidetsugu looks fine. Showdown scores is going to be hard to cast. But again, we need our colour pips to make all of our things. We don't need the extractions actually, so we can have one of these back. Alright, this is our opening hand. We've got the Leyline to slow our opponent down so we can maybe do our thing, and we've got 2 red blasts. So I think this is a keep. Leylines aren't so dead in our deck because at least we get to pitch extra Leylines we draw to Griefs. Ponder on turn 1, not particularly scary. To us. Fable and Mirror Breaker, this will be a good one to resolve if we can. But we're going to need some more mana to do it. Scrubland. Now the question is, do we want to... I don't think we actually want to force it into what could quite clearly be a daze or something. And if we hold up like this and our opponent wastelands us, we get both of these lands back with a brought back. And we get to play around counterspell with a red blast doing it that way. So a wasteland here would actually be pretty good for us. Not helping us out. A Marsh Flats. Okay, so we can play Fable the Mirror Breaker around a red blast this turn, with a red blast this turn, which I think is probably worth doing. I think we go and get ourselves a Plateau, Badlands here. So kind of got the whole shebang. So I think the only issue we have here is if we play the Fable the Mirror Breaker now and our opponent has daze, our red elemental blast doesn't actually look that good. Let's see if we can get this one down. This is definitely worth some action from our opponent. Yeah, this is like a force of... no, they're just cracking Scoring Titan first. This is going to be a hard cast Force of Negation. Counter target blue spell. Okay, we got Force of Will out of it. Sure. So we ended up with a 2-for-1 on the Fable. That's not too bad. What do they pitch? No Murktides or anything interesting. Just means they don't have them, because those would be the first things you pitch when you're under a Leyline, because you're a long ways off from casting them. Brainstorm? Sure. So another strategy we could have played this game, while our opponent was casting their Ponder, is try and just use our fetch lands and do a brought back in our opponent's end step to try and ramp us. But we already have 4 lands in play, so 5 is the most expensive thing in our deck, and this brought back could be much more useful later on. Like, we're pretty close to hard casting Solitude, and we're not really under any pressure right now. So we've got a Plow, and we got a Solitude, so we're doing okay here. Like, we're going to need something a bit more than what we've got. And our creatures don't really incentivize us to play them out just as creatures, really. And now we've got an Arid Mesa, so we can hardcast any things in our deck. A Petty Theft. Counter target spell if it's blue. I think this is worth Pyroblasting. I think we do it with the Badlands. This also stops it going on an adventure, so they won't have it to play. Okay, so we got a 2-for-1 out of that as well. Sure. And this is just a bounce spell. That's okay with me. We can replay that Leyline because we have enough mana to do so. So we get 1 turn to fill up their bin. Expressive Iterations, pretty reasonable way of doing that. Daze, enter the exile zone. Okay. So not really getting any advantage off of that. I didn't get a land. Got 3 cards in hand. Over to us. We want to keep our Arid Mesa uncracked if we can help it, because it's good with brought back, but also we can go and get the Triome. So they're cracking a daze. It's cracking off a daze here. So let's get this Arid Mesa going. So now we're kind of priced into getting ourselves Scrubland here, I think. They can shut us off of red at the moment, so maybe we need to get a Plateau, so that gives us red white. I can shut us off of black if we get Badlands. We get Badlands here. We got another daze. They do have another daze. Sure. So they spent an awful lot of resources trying to deal with this Leyline, and now they don't have any lands in play. We have loads of removal for creatures. We just don't really have a great win con right now, but we can draw Queen of Marchesa, whatever her name is, but she is a 3/3, right? Which isn't the best stat line. Okay, now this is what I'm talking about. So we want to keep white open. So we're probably tapping these. Opponent's casting Expressive Iteration, that's fine. They do get to fill up their graveyard now, but we bought so many turns and developed our mana that their tempo stuff doesn't work, and they've used a lot of cards. Iteration's a good sort of rebuy to sort of counteract some of the cards they've had to pitch here. But we've got Fable the Mirror Breaker ticking up. Wasteland entered the exile zone. That's back to us. I think we probably pitch this Plow here. Let's see what we draw. Another Solitude. Jeez. We don't need all of these, do we? Okay, so I think we go to attack first. I think we just want to hard cast this guy right now. Keep this up so it looks like we've got Pyroblast up. We got the treasure token anyway, but... Force of Will, Trino Nemesis, Unholy... I think Trino Nemesis is the scariest of these cards now. So they got Force of Will and Unholy Heat. Sure. Surprised they didn't snap the Unholy Heat off on the Grief. I'm not sure that I might cast Brought Back on the Grief if they were to do that. Looks like they're probably keeping the Unholy Heat for our Fable the Mirror Breaker when it flips. Little do they know. So we can cast this one. It's got haste, so... do they have a blue card? They do not. So we become the Monarch here. So if they put the Brazen Borrower in to trade with this, we're still going to be the Monarch. And we also have the ability to Plow, Solitude, and Brought Back. So we can kind of do it all. Just have a little card. It's a swamp. So here comes a Brazen Borrower to try and steal the Monarch. Sure. Opponent's upkeep, we're going to evoke this. Pitching the other Solitude, I think. And then if they kill any of our guys, we get to bring it back. So I'm imagining that our opponent might try and use that Unholy Heat or our Reflection of Kiki-Jiki here. Certainly a possibility. Feels like we've rounded the corner on this one relatively well. Lightning Bolt, sure. Can Lightning Bolt our Reflection of Kiki-Jiki like we thought they might. Can Lightning Bolt our Queen Marchesa, sure. So we know the 2 cards in their hand. So we're going to cast Brought Back. So which 2 do we want? I think we want Queen Marchesa. And probably Fable at this point. So white and white. Okay, they've had enough, sure. So that felt pretty good. Be nice if we had some more sort of stuff to do later on, but I think we kind of need to keep the configuration more or less as it is. We don't sort of want to run a cropper. A case of like Marchesa versus Showdown of the Skalds is interesting to me. Because our deck is kind of chock full of removal, I think the Monarch is just going to serve us better than the Showdown. I could be wrong on that one. I think the Death Touch on it is quite nice too. Yeah, we'll leave it as is. This does pitch to more things, so it is more synergistic with our deck. Okay, so we start off with a Leyline in play, but then our hand is pretty slow. We can clear out some Delvers and stuff if they have them, which is the only threat that really matters. So I think we keep this one. We start with this in play. Our opponent's kept 7 as well, though. A Volcanic Island, a Ponder. So that's the best turn 1 we can see from our opponent from our side of the board, really. Let me just play out our Triome here. It's obviously a very good Wasteland target. But okay, no Wasteland, sure. Our Marsh Flats. Just playing this out. Our opponent's definitely going to have Dazers. They kept multiple Dazers in on the draw. They're definitely going to have them in on the play. A Ponder, sure. Okay, they didn't shuffle their light this time. A Delver. Brought Back. This is kind of where we want to be, isn't it? I think the better play here, though, is to cast the Hidetsugu Consumes All. I think that's the higher equity line here. So what do we want here? I think we can we're going to need white sources, aren't we? So probably want to get a Scrubland or... No, probably a Plateau. So this is black, red, white. So this is Daze Bait for the most part. We got a 2 for 1 out of it. Okay, I'll take that. The Multi-Regent went there, that's not a problem. So ideally we want them to play like another Delver this turn or something. And then we can try and Fury with Brought Back. And sort of bury them underneath that. Force of Will is in their hand now, though. That's a bit awkward for us. I don't think we want to be playing Queen Marchesa here. I think that's going to be a bit of a liability. I have to imagine our opponent has blue cards here to go with their Force of Will. Expressive Iteration, sure. They have a Wasteland. Goodbye Triome, sure. Not ideal for us. Arid Mesa. So I think we try and get the Force out of their hand. So I guess we're probably on Badlands. So I'm going to try and get the Force out and take another hit off this Delver. If this sticks, then we get a lot of value off of it as well. Sure, Force Pitching Ponder. And then we can try and clear out their board with a Fury, and we'll be left with a Fury, and we'll get the extra land off of the Arid Mesa from the Brought Back. It's going to cost us a little bit of life because we're taking these Delver hits, but they don't have access to their graveyard, so they can't really hit us in big chunks just yet. Another Expressive Iteration, sure. Again, if this finds us a Wasteland, it's not the end of the world for us. 2 cards into it. A Volcanic Island. Not a Wasteland, sure. Just going to bash for 3. Ideally, I want them to play another Delver here. Doesn't look like they're going to appease me. Okay, this is a great draw. Crack this. We need to get another white source. And if we get Scrubland, it gives us black, black, red, red, and lots of white. Sure. So we're going to evoke this, scanning this. We have a Pyroblast for this as well. Then on our end step, we will Brought Back. Oh my god, I clicked the wrong button and went all the way through it. Oh my god. Late night fat fingers on there with that one. Alright, we made this game a lot more difficult than it needed to be. I'm so sorry. Another Leyline in the Void. Yeah, I guess we're casting this. It means they can't bounce both of them. It means we're down on Pyroblast for turn, but the only things we're really worried about are more Delvers, I guess. And they now need two Brazen Borrowers to access their graveyard. So they basically have a Brazen Borrower and some Delvers in their deck to win the game with. They can certainly make 1/1s. Oh my god, that brought back play is going to haunt me. I bet. Well, it wasn't a play, it was just a misclick. So. Oh yes, this is why. There was an update of Magic the Gathering Online today and it took away my end of turn stop. I'd like to have for myself. Sure. An Ephemerate. Sure, so if we find any guys, we're definitely getting guys. Opponent's got a lot of Volcanic Islands. They're working up to hardcasting Force of Wills. We can now hardcast Solitudes. Funny old game, this one. Let's keep our opponent's exile zone face up for us. Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Sure. Red 1, 2. Will this resolve? I suspect not. This card is high enough value to fight over. We can pay for the days. Got another days? Feels like they got another days. Yeah, sure. So we got 2 for 1 with that Pyroblast. We unfortunately don't get our Fable of the Mirror Breaker now. If we didn't have Leylines, I wouldn't use a Pyroblast that way. But because we've got double Leyline, it means I feel pretty safe against Murktide. Our life total is only 11 though, so if they do find a creature and we don't have anything to deal with it, because we do have the cards like this which don't do anything on their own. So a Solitude. Sure, that's a thing that does things. We don't really need to cast it. So win condition that we'd rather get the value off of first. What a weird game. Have to imagine our opponent's got lightning bolts and stuff in hand as well. So we want to leave open the Plateau here, I think. Just make sure, for absolute certain, that our opponent is not getting access to their graveyard here. I think additional ones we can save for Fable of the Mirror Breakers and stuff. Okay, let's cast this. We want to keep white open, so we're probably going like this. Our opponent can't hardcast Force of Will. Okay, so Force of Will, pitching Force of Will. Sure. So how many Force of Wills are our opponents? 1, 2, 3, and a Force of Negation. 2 Force of Negation. Sure. So most of the stuff we're going to cast the rest of the game should resolve, I'd hope. Wasteland. Sure. I think they're probably going to keep this Wasteland up to represent Force of Will rather than Wastelanding off of one of our lands. No, okay. We'll float a white. If we want to, we can Brought Back. If our opponent played a creature then maybe we'd have Solitude and got a nice Brought Back going, but as it stands, we're kind of just... this is a guy, isn't it? Okay, so we are the Monarch now. That's pretty big news for us. And this has haste. Okay, sure, a Lightning Bolt. I have to imagine that our opponent's got a number of Lightning Bolts in their hand. We get to continue being the Monarch, so we're in a good situation here. We'll tap like this so we can keep up our fetch land. Okay, I think we're on the way to winning the game now. Like, we have creatures covered, we have graveyards covered. We're drawing many cards a turn, so pitching things to Solitude is pretty elementary. A Ponder. So it's been a while since our opponent cast a cantrip. We're slightly behind on clock though, so we need to speed up our pace of play. Dragon's Rage Channeler, sure. Okay, they're paying some amount of costs here. A Surgical Extraction targeting Marchesa. Sure, be my guest. Like, they might just see my hand and scoop here, but we'll see. I think I will discard 1 Ephemerate. Okay, we drew Badlands, sure. We're going to attacks. We can kind of do all of our stuff at instant speed here, so we may as well wait for our opponent's turn. Although, do we want them to draw something? So let's get our Monarch trigger first. Okay. So let's just fire off, crack this one first. Let's get basic planes. We will cast this, pitching the Ephemerate here. We want to maintain having the Monarch, I think. This way we have loads of mana to play around daisies, and we also have these plows, and we can cast a Brought Back to get back our land as well. I'm going to try and petty theft this. That's not going to work for them. They know we've got a Brought Back in hand. We can just bring back the Solitude because of the way we stacked it. Red. It's price of progress. 2, 4, 6. Unholy Heat targeting our little man. Sure. Because we have these 2 plows, I'm happy to do this. And just get back our Solitude and our friend here. And our little land. They got another Surgical here? They do have a Surgical. Interesting. Okay, so there goes our Solitudes. We're running a bit low of actual win conditions, you know. We still get our Plateau here, but that's not the not our Arid Mesa. That's not the most exciting. Our Fable of the Mirror Breaker will flip though, so if we get any guys, we get to do lots of things with them. And we're still the Monarch, so we're in a fine spot. We have 2 removal spells. We are the Monarch. Our opponent can't use their graveyard. Where's this going to be? Steam Vent's tapped, I think. Kind of need to be very wary of the clock right now. I think we're just going to crack these now. Oh, no, I got the wrong one there, didn't I? Sure. So the other Marsh Flats doesn't actually find anything. Annoying. I was playing too quickly because I've only got a few minutes left. Sure, you can lightning bolt our guy. We'll just pass for our turn. Have an Ephemerate, sure. We don't need to cast this Fury just yet. Okay, now we can cast the Fury. Sure, you can brainstorm. Just next time we're going to be furying with a plow backup, or 2 plows backup even. And if they kill our Fury, we can bring it back, or we can Ephemerate it in response to a removal spell. Our opponent is now a good 20 seconds less time on the clock than us. Dragon's Rage Channeler, sure. Is this Expressive Iteration? Sure. Okay, they're dazing just so they can scry, just so they can surveil more. So basically using daze as a 1 mana surveil 1. Pyroblast is a good draw here. And then we don't need to do anything else. Just draw a card off the Monarch. We have a 2-turn clock here. Sure. Expressive Iteration away. Door of Secrets, that's fine. Dragon's Rage Channel, that's fine. Back to us. Play this one out. This Fury. Kill their guys off. If that didn't work, we could have always Hidetsugu Consumes All. Petty Theft. So we're going to Ephemerate targeting this using white. So this will fizzle the Petty Theft so it won't go into the exile zone either. It's for them to play. We have lethal on board. Price of Progress. How much damage is this going to be? 1, 2, 4, 6, 8. So first up, we crack this. And we fail to find. So it's a 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So if we plow one of our guys here. So it takes up to 11. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And then if they have a lightning bolt, which they don't have any cards in hand. So this will put us to 1. And they kill themselves. Excellent. Sure. They were going for a draw game there, which is fascinating. It was quite an interesting end to that game. I think actually, like, we were supposed to do the brought back thing and get a land and our guy back. But I think having it for later ended up working out in our favour. So I still think, obviously, what I knew at the time, I wanted to make that play. But looking back, maybe it was better to hold it and just play this, I have all the removal, you don't have any of your resources, I win the game type affair. So, yeah, our opponent killed themselves with Price of Progress. Nice. All right, that's 2 rounds. Let's go to the 3rd one. All right, I forgot to turn my mic on for this round. There's not really too much that happens before I actually do figure this out and turn my mic back on. So I just thought I'd let you know. You don't actually have to worry about any commentary. I've not really got anything to say, and I sort of say it all once the mic kicks back in anyway. Sorry, I've just realised I have my mic turned off there. So all I was saying, our opponent looks like it might be like a Shark Steel type deck, and we're running out this Sculler now to pave the way for our Fable the Mirror Breaker. And I think maybe we should have played the Plains out on turn 1 for the turn 2 Sculler as an option if we drew it, which is what happened. So I think there's a slight misstep from me there. Right, so there's a Shark Typhoon, confirmed what I thought it was, deck-wise. Like, they have to have lots of action because they missed their 3rd land drop. What are they going to play now? They could just play a Stifle or something here. No, sorry, not Stifle, Standstill. Cycling Timeless Dragon, sure. So they're just trying to develop their mana base here. Back over to us. Let's see what we got. An Arid Mesa. I think we're probably holding the Arid Mesa for now. Play out a second white source. And we can play out this Hidetsugu Consumes All. To try and deal with what's going on here. But I think we're just best off casting our Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Holding up this to represent a potential Pyroblast. This is a good enough spell to get a counter spell. Okay, our opponent's looking for a counter spell. I don't think our opponent plays Daze, but in the world of initiative, like, control's basically gone, so who knows what sort of measures control players are taking to try and at least have a fighting chance. Not sure Daze would be enough, but it could be, and it's free for us to play around it. Now, there is a bit of a nombo by playing the Hidetsugu Consumes All after the Fable of the Mirror Breaker, because it will blow up our stuff. But I don't think this is going to be a matchup where we need Hidetsugu Consumes All necessarily. So it's probably just going to be pitch food. Although we might just be hard casting everything this game anyway. Because it looks like we're going to have plenty of time. So creatures isn't going to be a problem for us in theory because we have a lot of stuff here. So I don't have the second white, so they can't eternalize this. So that's 4 mana and you get 4/4 copy of it. Now, being a 4/4 copy is pretty handy for us because we have these Furies in our deck. So we're in an okay spot. A Narset. Sure. Looks like they're holding up potential Plow or Ponder mana here. So we'll get a better idea which in a second. That's the Tundra they fetched off of the Timeless Dragon. Force of Will. Sure. And the Plow. Alright. So Fury hits Planeswalkers, importantly. I don't think I want this Hidetsugu Consumes All. I do like this because it's more card advantage. And the Solitude, maybe. Don't know if I want the Solitude. I'll picture Solitude as well, I think. What am I doing? They've got a Narset in play. Jesus Christ. That's an embarrassing one, isn't it? God, he's watching me play decks badly. Alright. Red, red, red. And these. So this is probably going to get the Force of Will. Yeah. And they pitched a Force of Will to do it. Sure. So next turn we can make the same play if we want to. Oh my god, I'm so embarrassed at that play. Guess it is like 1 AM, but still no excuse for that one. Alright. Stand still. Sure. Interesting to stand still when we have Fable of Mirror Breaker in play. Another Force of Will. Yikes. Okay. Might be a tricksy one. So, if they have a Shark Typhoon, then our effects of Kikijiki is going to be a bit awkward, suffice to say. Yikes. What do we want to do here? I think we have to break the standstill because they wouldn't do this setup unless they had a Shark Typhoon in play. So I think we have to break the standstill and give them cards. So we're going to play the Sculler. So they get some cards, but we maybe get to look at them. I suspect they might just hard cast the Force of Will right now on this. Which is fine, but not great. Oh, it looks like they're pitch casting it. They're pitch casting a standstill. Sure. I don't really want to just attack into the Shark Typhoon. It is very, very obviously telegraphed. Because there's no reason your opponent would leave open all this mana when they could have hard cast the Force of Will here. Like, you can pitch cast the second one if you need to. But the reason you do this is if you want to make a Shark. So we're going to get a Shark end of turn, I think. Here we go. So it's going to be a 3/3. So we can cast a Fury next turn and kill the Shark token. Oh, it's a Wandering Emperor. Interesting. So we can make the Fury and kill the Wandering Emperor next turn. So this makes them a 2/2 and puts us up to 4 counters. I think, no, puts it to 2 counters, doesn't it? So it'll be 3, 4, 5. So we can make a Fury next turn and kill the Wandering Emperor. And if we draw a land, we can then copy it and kill some other stuff too. So they're putting Shark Typhoon on top of their library. I'm not sure looping Shark Typhoons is going to work that well for them here. Okay, they got another standstill. A little bit annoying, but we don't really have a choice but to break it here. So a land would be a nice draw, I think. If we don't draw a land, we can still just cast it, put 3 on this, 1 on this, and then attack in with the Kikijiki. Queen Marchesa. I don't think we can cast that right now. Red, 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 white, white. Yeah, you get your thing. So we've seen all 4 Force of Wills. So I have to imagine this resolves. So put 3 on this and 1 on this. Go attacks. Let's attack the Wandering Emperor and kill it off. I don't think our opponent's going to be playing like Hull Breacher, Days Undoing type stuff. I've not seen that in Shark Steel. I don't think it's very good. So we know they've got Shark Typhoon in hand as well as a boatload of cards. But if we untap with this setup, we can kill any number of sharks. So they're probably going to have to kill our things first. Hasty Furies coming out the face. A Supreme Verdict, you say? A little bit mean. So I think this turn we're casting Marchesa here. Now we have a choice. Do we think our opponent's running Snapcaster Mage or not? I'm going to go with they might be. So I'm not going to attack with our Queen Marchesa here. Although if they have the... Yeah, so that way they can't flash in the Snapcaster and kill our Queen on their turn. Well, I suppose they could do, yeah, but they won't get the value off the Snapcaster, I mean. So they won't be able to take the Monarch this turn. Putting Standstill on top of their library, sure. That makes me feel that our opponent's probably going to be able to kill our creature. Or they're not playing it now. Or they wanted a blue card for some reason. Interesting. It's got this Brought Back, that feels pretty good. Guess we cast this Showdown of the Skalds. Leave an open Brought Back mana. Counter Spell. Wowzers trousers. Right. Let's go after the Nasa this time. They didn't have the Snapcaster last time, so this time we can actually start drawing some cards off the Monarch. Last time we wanted to keep our guy back. So we didn't want our opponent to get the Monarch, just clear the board and just to be able to 1-for-1 remove everything we did. Okay. This is a little bit annoying. But if they ever steal the Monarch, we can just cast this to get the Monarch back. And our opponent doesn't have Force of Wills, and they've used one of their counter spells. So, sure, that's fine. Not fine, but... So they're going to internalize their dragon here. Sure. We're going to let them draw some more cards. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we don't get Brought Back here, do we? That's the only issue. So we can have a Standstill. They can't have Force of Will. Force of Negation doesn't hit this. Subtlety seems unlikely to be in our opponent's deck, but could be, I suppose. Get rid of this. And then we'll draw some more cards. So we've got a lot of threat potential in terms of our Showdown of the Skalds here. That can really ramp things up nicely. We can play out our Tidehollow Sculler as well. See what our opponent's working with. Our opponent might have a second Supreme Verdict in their deck, so we might be able to bait them into casting a Wrath that we can then bring our creatures back. They still have a Shark Typhoon in hand. God, there's so much to concentrate on this game. Right. They've cracked many, many standstills and still aren't really getting anywhere. They do have 7 cards in hand, though. Solitude, Ponder. Plowing our guy. Sure. Currency Converter. Sure. This makes them threats. So this is a real card in this deck. Standstill. Sure. Playing this old chestnut again, are we? They've got the Crackers up, so this is now just a pitch card, the Marchesa, unless we need to steal back the Monarchy somehow. Okay, so I think step 1 is black-white, make a Scholar. Yep, you can have some cards, and then maybe I get to see one of them and take the one I want. What have we got here? Prismatic Ending is the removal spell here. They can make a 1-1 Shark if they want to. Can we stop a 1-1 Shark? We can't stop a 1-1 Shark with either thing we've got going here. So I think we just take the Prismatic Ending here. And then cast Showdown of the Skalds here. I think we leave up the white mana here. If they're brainstorming here, they're not making a Shark. Now the Shark also gets to go into the Currency Converter, which is very strong. What did we find? A Grief, Fable the Mirror Breaker, lots of good stuff. The player's land. What have we got left? Lots of stuff left. We need a white source. We can't cast Fable the Mirror Breaker. We can cast this Grief though. Now the problem is this discards a card, which then puts it under the Currency Converter, which isn't necessarily what I want to do. Interesting. I'm going to stop my opponent from getting the Monarch this turn by casting Fury, like this. So our opponent won't get the Monarch back this turn because we're going to bring it back if they make the things. Now, if our opponent doesn't do anything at end step, then that play's going to look a little bit awkward. But like the Queen Marchesa was a dead card anyway. So I have to choose if I want to kill this now, or if I want to get the Currency Converter value of trying to kill the guy under the Currency Converter. I think I just need to guarantee that I don't get bopped here. So I'm going to go white, white, and bring these two back. Our opponent's got one blank card in hand that we don't know. Because of the way priority works, our opponent doesn't pop this on our end step, then we don't get anything here. This means we've got a blocker in the Sculler for their 2-2 if they want it. So they're getting a rogue here. Shut Typhoon down. Now if they don't have removal, so drew a Flooded Strand, they got a Brainstorm. So what removal we've seen so far? Plow. We need to stay ahead of our opponent's clock as well here. Prismatic Ending on the Sculler. So did find a removal spell. And this puts a Prismatic Ending into their hand, but they don't have the mana to kill our Fury. So they're going to attack here and get the Monarch, but then we're going to grief them and then make a big Fury perhaps, and then get the Monarch back maybe. Right, this is going to be a big turn for us hopefully. It's not a great start to the turn. So play this out. Let's crack this. Let's get Scrubland. Let's cast this, so black, red, one of these, 6 mana. Okay, they're cycling a Shark Typhoon because they want to get the Shark Typhoon out of their hand. Get some value that way, sure. This also does give them a blocker. So they got some Prismatic Endings over there. Do I want them to have Prismatic Ending? Do I want our counter spell to be something we can ignore? I think we probably take the counter spell here. Put that under the converter. Sure. We're casting this. 1, 2, 3. Would you rather have the Grief be bigger? They can actually kill the Grief, but I don't think they can kill the Fury with what they got in their hand right now. So we have to attack with our Fury here. He's forced the Shark to go under the bus. It might not be the Shark. They might put one of their currency convert tokens under the bus. Oh, they are putting their Shark under the bus. Interesting. Sure. So they're going to make a 2-2 here. It's kind of the issue with hitting them with the Grief is that they do get under the currency converter. Okay, we're just going to get the Triome here so we can F2 our way through this turn. We need to keep an eye on the clock because this is still game 1. Was not looking for a big, long, grindy league today. This looks like Timeless Dragon. Oh no, they're just ending our Fable Mirror Breaker, sure. So they have 3 creatures here, so I might even just deck out, to be honest. Queen Marchesa is interesting. I think we'll attack with just this one. It's probably just going to get one guy under the bus. Interesting. Very weird play. Because the double strike means that these won't deal all their damage to it. That was a horrible misplay. To be fair, I made a pretty horrible misplay earlier, so I can't really think. So we'll play this out. Put this token on this guy. This will get us the Monarch back, which is what I said earlier about how we just have a way that gives us the Monarch. And we play one of our lands out. We'll say go. Yeah, I'm not really sure why our opponent's triple blocking at all there. They must have forgot how double strike works or something, but I did discard some cards into Fable Mirror Breaker, so we're even, I guess. Looks like they're getting something back. Shark Typhoon. Sure. So they're not going to deck out because of this combo. So we will need to win this game. But the longer this goes, the more difficult it's going to be for our opponent to win in another game in the time limit. So now they're in a bit of a bind in terms of what they do with their Caracas. Just thin our deck out slightly. Plateau. Is that like the only land we're left in our deck, I think? Apart from fetch lands, obviously. So this guy's got Menace, so they have to put 2 guys underneath it. And Fury is going to be big enough to deal with anything. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is fine. Let's Sculler first. So this is going to get the Shark Typhoon out of the way, I think. Maybe it won't. Cracking a Flooded Strand. I suppose they can deck out here because they have to draw a card off of the Shark Typhoon, don't they? Okay, so here's the Shark Typhoon. As expected. Pretty sure our thing's going to resolve here. What a long game this is. What are you working with over there, opponent? Sure, you can bounce our Queen Marchesa. Prismatic Ending, Standstill, Timeless Dragon. Do we care about any of these? Like, they have to Prismatic Ending this rather than hit anything else. So I think we go to attacks with our 2 boys, maybe? I'm just curious if I want to surrender our Fury and our Grief or not. Let's attack with both of them, and we have the Brought Back if we need it. Sure, so these will trade. And then they'll take 4. And do I want to bring back our Fury? I imagine our opponent's going to make a guy at end step here. So we'll let them make the guy this time, and then we'll bring back our Fury. White, white, it's back. Sure, a bit of a blank draw, but 'tis what it is. Now our Fury isn't big enough to rumble with some of their sharks. Narset, Partra, Veils. Sure. They're going to go looking. So we can't draw any additional cards. We need to remember that. So we don't make a very embarrassing play on our channel that people will laugh at. Teferi is interesting. So the ultimate of this is whenever you draw a card, exile target permanent opponent controls. Sure. By the time this goes off, they can only exile 10. So they won't be able to exile all of our permanents because they're not going to have enough cards in their library. Oh, this is a long one. There's a Teferi. I didn't Shark Typhoon this turn either. So we're drawing a card. I guess we might well be decking our opponent here as a way of winning the game. Is this going to find anything? Fails to find. Sure. Interesting. Standstill. Okay, we want to pop the standstill because we want to deck our opponent. This has gone very weird. So they can make a small shark this turn. So I think we're just going to ram this bad boy out there. You can have your free cards. Like, these standstills have been giving them loads of cards, but they haven't really been able to do much with them. Alright, and this is not draw, it's just exile, so we get to actually do these things. Alright, so let's go to attacks. So this attacks Teferi. They can make a 2/2 shark. This will attack Teferi. And we didn't really want to get our Sculler prismatic ending, so we'll attack Teferi with these guys. The Wandering Emperor. So probably losing something here. And it's an exile, which is a little bit annoying. So we can cast this. So red. Red, we can leave up all these white mana pips here. We can cast this Fury. So we do 3 and 1. And I don't know if we actually have any lands, do we? So we just play this one out. So they know we've got the Brought Back, so any sort of... Okay, they're putting Shark Typhoon on top, which means when they cycle it, they go to 8 cards. That still counts as a draw. Timeless Dragon, sure. We don't care about that. Sure, you can get your bits and pieces going here. I'm going to play the standstill. What are you going to show us? A Swords to Plowshares. Okay, that's actually a pretty good one for them. Ploughing one of our Furies, makes sense. We cast a Plough in our turn because it will pump our creatures. Well, because we'll get hit the second thing of the Showdown of the Skalds here. Solitude. That's a fine draw. So I get this. And we will make our Fury bigger, because that's our big clock. We'll go to attacks. This will attack them. And this will also attack them. So what we can do here is we can Solitude to get a counter with the Showdown of the Skalds to make this bigger. This guy's a 4. We don't want to cast our Marchesa. I don't think our Brought Back is going to be doing anything except in the face of the Supreme Verdict. A Shark Typhoon. Sure. Our opponent said in the chat that they think they should have conceded a while ago, but they kind of just got too into the game and want to see how it goes. Which in some ways is interesting because sometimes when you're testing you want to be able to see how you're going to lose games as well. So when you're just doing a league, so you get better information about when is the right time to concede in more important games. Let's got a Ponder here. We've got Solitude. We can fire off in a sec. We're not going to get the counter on it though. But that's fine. We don't really need the counter. We're just here to kill our opponent's creatures. Teferi Time Raveler. If they Teferi Time Raveler and then cast Supreme Verdict, we're in a bit of trouble. But I think this is fine. Sure. We don't get to play our Solitude now. And they do get to steal the Monarch, but okay, they're going to mill out. Sure. So that was a crazy long game, and now we have to work out what we're doing. So I would like to play these blasts. I don't particularly care for these other things. Like Meltdown to blow up Currency Converter is kind of interesting. And like Wear Tear is probably fine as a one-off. It pitches to our Solitudes and Furies, so I don't hate that. Now, what are we looking at doing here? I'm not sure that Hidetsugu Consumes All is where I want to be, but it seems fine. Maybe trimming on like Ephemerate here and Brought Back, because we're not looking to go fast, we're just looking to sort of grind our opponent. We want to keep all the stuff in that's going to be... Ephemerate lets us dodge removal. So we want 2 and 2. And then we're probably looking at cutting a Solitude here. Everything else is just gas, really. So I think this is fine. We want to keep plows in just so we don't get killed quickly, because our opponent has to win 2 games in like 5 minutes. So another unplayable opener. 2 red blasts and some other stuff. Sure, we can keep this. We're probably looking at getting rid of the Queen Marchesa here, because we know they have Caracas. It's a 4-drop. We want to just have early interaction so that we can draw this game out if we need to. A Ponder. We have seen a Wasteland actually from our opponent, so we're probably just going to lead out on this Arid Mesa. We want to hold double red blast for next turn if our opponent tries to make a Trine Nemesis, because that's one of the things that can actually kill us in a reasonable time. This Hidetsugu can actually kill the currency converter, which is nice. Another land would be nice to see here. We are playing the Plateau out, even though our opponent can wasteland it, because we want to have double red blast to make sure a true name doesn't come into play, because that's a thing that can actually clock us in this sort of time. So we're playing to very specific things here. And if our opponent plays a standstill, we can Pyroblast it on the stack. So Volcanic Island, cracking their Scalding Tarn, another Ponder, a standstill. I will counter this with a red blast. I'd still like to keep up the red blast, so I'm going to go and get probably a scrub. No, we need to get a Badlands here, don't we? So we can go black, white. What are you working with over there? Guess we take the Supreme Verdict. They can play out Timeless Dragon in a couple of turns. Just having a little chat with our opponent. Seemed like a thoroughly pleasant human being, which is always nice. Right, our opponents resolved their brainstorm. I don't want to try and take too much time with their clock. We're talking to them either. Do we care about this? I think we do. So that's both of our Pyroblast down. Do we think our opponent's got a counterspell? I don't know. They do not have a counterspell. Sure. So we've got another Showdown the Skalds, so we can wish for more wishes here. And we're playing our Badlands out here. And we're just playing this other Showdown. Sure. We get some cards. My Sculler gets marginally bigger. A Hydroblast. Sure. We already played land, so we're not playing our Triome this turn. Our Brought Backs are going to stay in the exile zone. We've got nothing. We might as well yield. Save on our clock just in case something weird happens. Timeless Dragon. Sure. This one is one that doesn't get killed by Fury, though. Which is interesting. So, black, 1. Make our Sculler bigger. Got Brainstorm that we take, and they got Plateau Wasteland. Sure. I think we play out this Triome, since we know we have a Wasteland here. It means that we're going to have all of our mana available. So they got 2 minutes to win 2 games. I think we're okay here. Our guy's got Menace, which is nice. We've got Hidetsugu Consumes All, which we can strip their graveyard out with and just do some cool things with. But if they at any point kill our Tidehollow Sculler, they can Supreme Verdict and then play out the Timeless Dragon that way. But getting some free plug from my opponent. Right. Our opponent decided to take the last minute or so of their clock just to have a little chat instead, which is lovely and makes sense considering I don't think they can win there. All right, so we are 2-1 after 3 rounds. So let's go into the 4th one. We've won a die roll, but our hand is pretty dead of action. We do have the Fable, but if this doesn't stick, then it's pretty bad. It's also a turn 3-drop, which is too slow in the format at the moment, so I'm going to mulligan. This is a better hand. We can sort of buy our way up if we need to doing these other things. Probably keep this. I think we're slinging back the grief here. We probably just play out a basic Plains here. It gives us access to source to Plowshares if required. A Flooded Strand Pass. Okay, that could be a lot of decks. An Arid Mesa. So we're going to play out this Arid Mesa. And our opponent's end step, we can go and get the Triome. Just as having a nice mana fixing land probably there. Unless our opponent plays out a Wasteland or gives us some other pause for thought. Okay, Island. Basic Island, Flood Strand. Depending on what this gets, makes us know if we need to get our Wasteland. Stoneforge. Okay, it's just like a Stoneblade deck. Sure. So we'll let them get the Cauldron before we kill their guy. Umazawa's Jitte. That probably means they got Cauldron in hand. We should be doing this at end step instead of main, but they played all their lands for 10 anyway. So let's just crack this, get a Triome. we don't want to draw the Triome as a land. So if we can get it now and get out of the way, that makes a lot of sense to me. Brought Back. So I think this turn we're playing our Mesa, holding back Brought Back in case our opponent wastelands us. And then we can crack the Arid Mesa and then get a Brought Back for 2 lands off. Which is quite a nice big tempo jump there. We can start hard casting Furies and then playing Showdown the Skalds and stuff like that. A Ponder from our opponent. Let's crack this. Okay. So we're already playing into Wasteland a bit anyway. So I think we want a Scrubland. Because we've already got... Yeah, this will give us our second black and we've got our second red there. Sure. So we're going to play out our Plateau and play this holding up red. Well, holding up all of our colours here. This is Force of Willable as a target. I think it's good enough to get one, and it didn't, so that's pretty nice for us. Okay, they're just plowing our guy. That's fine. In our deck, the actual Fable side is really strong here, so... The Brought Back is probably pitchable to the Fable, because their removal is exile removal for the most part, so we're unlikely to get a lot of joy out of it. And because they're Stoneforge, they're probably not running Supreme Verdict either. They're probably on a more aggressive suite of creatures, so probably got True Name Nemesis in there, which I hope they're not about to cast. Okay, so there's a True Name Nemesis, so I shouldn't have said anything, should I? Now, we can definitely outrace this. We've got some big lads, but it's not going to be easy. Would you like another Fable the Mirror Breaker? Or would we... I think we really need to draw a land here. So I'm going to pitch... Actually, no, we can just pitch just the Brought Back, actually. Yeah, and just cast a Showdown. And statistically speaking, this should find us a land. If it resolves. I felt like our opponent was reading that one more than making a choice, to be honest. So we've got some lands here. Doesn't matter which one we get here. There's a marginal thinning on the Bloodstained Mire. We're going to play them both. So we'll see how we go. So we're probably going to get clocked pretty quick by this True Name. That is the nature of things sometimes. Taking a beating from this lad. Getting a free plug-in though, so if you want to beat me and I get 2 subs out of it, I guess that's probably more or less fine, right? Oh dear. So this is going to get the Cauldron, because I've already got the Umezawa's Jitte. We're going to crack this just for the very, very marginal thinning capabilities. We got a lot of red and white spells. We're going to get that one. Does Queen Marchesa cut the mustard here? I don't think Queen Marchesa is going to be doing us a lot of good. They have a Caracas up. That's usually a sign that you shouldn't be trying to play a legendary creature. Pro tip for you right there. So we might play the Hidetsugu Consumes All. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we have to pitch this. I think we cast this. Red, red, and this. If this gets countered, then we're probably dead. If it doesn't get countered, though, we're in a relatively okay spot, I think. Okay, a Snapcaster Mage. That's more information about what our opponent's playing. And they're playing that guy. Sure, so we're going to get beaten down. Can we beat the Cauldron? We can... We take a hit from it this turn, so we go to 8. And then it's 3, 6, 9 to kill us. So they need to get 1 Stoneforge Mystic hit in, which is relatively rudimentary. If they play and equip the Jitte this turn. No? Okay, so Solitude can get rid of the Germ token and can have lifelink to make some sort of race. Queen Marchesa. I think our best hit is to just cast this other Showdown. We might be able to run into Source to Plowshares or something. Buy us a turn. And then maybe we can get into the Solitude plan like I've mentioned. White, white, red. We got 1 card in hand. It could be a hard cast Force of Negation. Alright. This has got to be a good one. It's got to find us a Source to Plowshares and a Solitude. An Ephemerate. A Brought Back. And a Kiki Jiki's Mirror. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we are dead on board if our guy dies. But this gives us more looks next turn at some removal. Quite how we're going to be able to get the damage in with a... Maybe our opponent attacks with the Stoneforge Mystic and then we can get Solitude trigger off. It's pretty tenuous, I think, here. But we might see a little bit more of our opponent's deck as a possibility. Right, we saw the Snapcaster Mage, which is good information. We're ahead on clock by a little bit, so not a lot, but a non-zero amount. puts us to 1. This shuts off all of our fetch lands. We're going to have a bad time, I suspect. So these Fables of the Mirror Break are definitely not doing anything for us. So we're going to get rid of both of them. It's done. Right. Like, we were looking for a Solitude there, so we could Solitude this and maybe block the Stoneforge if our opponent makes a mistake. That's the sort of level of screwed we were there. So we use Pyroblasts and our Elemental Blast because they're some of the only ways we can deal with the, what's it called? The Stoneforge Mystic. I don't mind having a Wear Tear for things like Jitte and Batterskull. I think that's fine. I don't think I want to go full Meltdown. The Queen Marchesa, not looking so hot in a world of Caracas. It does pitch to all of our things though. Hidetsugu Consumes All. I didn't see Delvers. I don't think our opponent can run Delvers in terms of all the other things we saw. So as we discussed before, Brought Back is pretty weak against exile removal. Has slightly less utility in it. This Hidetsugu Consumes All. I'm not really sure if that's where we want to be. Maybe we're looking at something like this. Alright, we'll try it. This is kind of like a much more aggressive version of Sharks in a lot of ways. It's got like a lot of the same blue permission, but it's got some tools to go with it. This hand is very slow, but it stops True Name Nemesis. And we can deploy all our land drops. But if they just make a turn to Stoneforge, we're going to feel awful, aren't we? So I think we should have to mulligan this. Okay, this is a better hand. We've got some emergency valves. Now we have a question of whether or not we want to try and throw a land back here and get lucky. So this is probably pitching to one of these two. And this might have to pitch. I think we're supposed to throw a land back, you know. I think we throw back the Plateau. We've got some draw steps to find a land. Alright. So this Bloodstained Mire is going to get us a Triome in our opponent's end step, I think. Because we don't want that to be one of the lands we draw. Because we want to be able to make our 3-drop. We have a Fury if we need it. We have a Solitude if we need it. We can do both. Right, it's just a plane, just an island. Do we think our opponent is running Stifle? Maybe. I don't think I want to play around it though. I mean, I don't think I want to play into it if I can avoid it. Okay, this is a great draw for us. I don't want to have to use our Pyroblast on anything other than a True Name though. That's the threat I would really like to avoid. So kind of hoping our opponent taps out of this blue mana at some point. I think we are going to have to crack it now. Okay, we did not see the Stifle there. Okay, so now we've been punished a little bit for throwing that land back. Not ideal. Stoneforge Mystic, sure. See what they go and find. A Batterskull. That one's annoying because they can actually cast that and then reset it and all sorts of stuff. Let's see what we draw. Did not draw the land here. We did draw a Fury though. So we probably want a Plateau here. So we've got a lot of red cards in hand. So I think we're going to cast this, exiling the school, Showdown the Skalds, I think. I don't want to let my shields down in the face of a True Name Nemesis. I don't know how easily we can beat True Names, so I think we have to hold it up and just use the Fury as a removal spell there. Sucks, but I think that's the best thing we do. Mistress Factory, interesting. Which means if we draw a Fable of the Mirror Breaker, we also don't really want to cast it necessarily. They would have cast... Oh, maybe they're playing around it though. Right, so we can do a Brought Back line next turn. If we'd have kept our fetch land instead of popping it there, we could have done it. There's a little tiny intricacy with a deck that won't have made a suboptimal play there. The question I have is, do I want to cast Brought Back as a Rampant Growth? Considering that would give us Fable of the Mirror Breaker plus Pyroblast next turn, I'm actually in favour of this one. Probably get Badlands here. We could have had a double ramp from Growth instead. Not happy with my play there. Might cost us the game. We'll see. Okay, they had a Spell Pierce anyway. We're not going to Pyroblast this. Okay, so that was just some bait there. Oh, I still don't want to let down our shields against the old the scary one. We need another white card for the Solitude at some point. Okay, our opponent's just going to hardcast a Batterskull now. Which is certainly a bit of an awkward one. We're just kind of sat here doing nothing, which doesn't feel great. Not happy with how I've played this one. Another red element blast. Okay, so now we are priced into doing this thing we could have done last turn. I have a habit of doing this. I lost a game the other day by playing around something too much. There's a Spell Pierce. We can't pay. My opponent just kind of gets to go to town now, and we're not going to be able to wear tear it anymore because they're going to be able to bounce their Battle Skull in response. Oh no, they're going to tap off of it. Okay. Jason the Mind Sculptor. So this isn't a problem to us because we have all these Pyroblasts. Where are you going to put this card on top of our library? Bash us for a little bit there. And then we're on black, white. If they let us keep this, it suggests to me that they've got a removal spell in hand, so they don't really care about this coming into play. So we've got Snapcaster, Force, Plow. Got a lot of stuff here. I think we take the Plow, and then we can try and force through things through the Pyroblast here, if necessary. So I just got a hard cast Force of Will at the go here. If we draw a white source, a white card, we can Solitude. Like we could have saved the Sculler to Solitude, but then they just get to rebuy it anyway, so it's just a buying turns type thing. We exile this. Pretty sure we're dead here. This is a bit of a desperation play. So we got the other Pyroblast there. They can bounce this, and they can also block our Sculler because they can make a Mishra's Factory, and then they can block with it, and then they can tap it to its own ability to make it a 3/3. So we don't have any good attacks here. A Battle Skull, sure. So this is going to come down again this turn. They get to ponder first as well. This does give us a chance to draw wear tear now though, which is something. Yikes. Okay, that's worse for us. Because they can put Battle Skull on that, and that's pretty bad for us. We're in cast this and hope that we can get some joy out of it next turn. I'm pretty sure we're dead. That's the over-under on this one. True name Nemesis. Sure. So they have lethal next turn. So we have to plow one of our own guys to survive, which is not really a winning tactic. Let's take a draw and then concede probably. So we can hard cast a Solitude to gain a little bit of life here. And then we have to hard cast a Solitude again to gain a bit more life. It's bad, isn't it? Let's play this out. Good attacks. Not sure how we're really expecting to win this game. Treasure token. They're going to block because it's free. And then we Solitude our guy. We did that so we could get the treasure token. This can't be countered with things like Spell Pierce. So that's nice. Okay, so we're not dead to the true names. If they attack with both of them, then we can attack for and gain 3. So we go down to 2, then we gain 3 to around 5. And then we just need to Solitude one of our guys again. Like, if we can have the Favour of the Mirror Breaker going, we could maybe do something a bit more there, but sure, there's the Battle Skull. Next turn, that gets to get on one of their guys. Yeah, I think we are dead here. Let's just take a draw and then concede. Alright, let's go one more round to do. Let's that matchup felt pretty horrible. We kind of had to 2-for-1 ourselves early to get stuff, and we didn't really have the scam side of things going. We haven't really been able to do that side of things at all, really. We've sort of just been like a slower, grindier deck, which isn't really what I envisioned this deck being when I saw the list. Alright, one more round. Got ourselves another win on the die rolls, but this is not a keepable hand, so we have to mulligan. Like, we can double grief our opponent, but then what? It just doesn't feel like I'm going to be able to play a game of Magic the Gathering unless my opponent's hand just falls apart with 2 Thoughtseize effects, which seems unlikely. Mulligan this one. Okay, so we can do our scammy thing here. We have to put 2 cards away. So we probably want to keep a fetch land. We don't really want to keep this basic though. It's just not one of the better basics, is it? So we got this Scrubland. I think we'll probably get rid of the Badlands here. So done. We don't really want to use a Fury until we can get some damage off of it. So like scamming with the grief on turn 1 is great, but oh no, maybe I should have kept my double grief hand. Oh no, it's a Ponder off of a Volcanic Island. That suggests to me Delver of Secrets, but it could be like Jeskai Control type stuff or the Rug Dreadnought decks. There's a lot of options it could be here. Maybe just bide our time for a little bit and then get some value off of the Furies. There's a Wasteland. It's definitely feeling like a Delver deck. Is it worth Furying just to kill this? Well, now it certainly looks like it might be. I don't really want to play out our Scrubland here. Get a Plains. So I think we are evoking this with this. Then we can use our Showdown Skalds to reload in a couple of turns. Okay, this is getting Force of Willed, so our plan doesn't really work and do anything. Now, we played Delver earlier, and we got pretty massacred in game 1, if I recall rightly, and then game 2 was a bit better for us. Is it worth playing out this Scrubland that's just going to get hit? I don't think we can. I think we have to leave it in our hand. With the onboard Wasteland, it's going to be tricky for us to make inroads in this game without drawing multiple lands or getting something going. Like if we draw... So the reason we didn't want to pitch the Showdown of Skalds there is because if we draw any other guys, we can pitch them with this. Whereas if we had Fury and Ephemerate, we might not go anywhere. Double Wasteland, sure. Not sure we win in this one. A Fury. Okay. Let's see. This will race Dragon's Rage Channel at least. So put the Evoke trigger on the bottom, and then this can deal 4 damage to this guy. And 1 damage to this guy. We can cast Ephemerate on this guy. So now we've got a Fury. Now, the problem with Fury is that Lightning Bolt kills it. As seen on TV right there. Sure. Now what? We got to get through double Wastelands and all of our spells cost 4 or 5 mana. Not the one. This one is one that doesn't. So this has to get us a red source here. So red, white, and this. So we're playing into a daze, but we have nothing going on. We need to get something on the board here. Sure. A daze. And then we're probably going to get double Wastelanded. And then the game is going to be a hard one to win from there. But I think this matchup is probably okay-ish. Like the 2 games we beat Devil with felt pretty convincing. Now they were off the back of Leyline in the Void, which is a powerful Magic the Gathering card. So we've got an answer for a Murktide if we can draw another white source. So that's something. We've got a black creature. Lots of quick passing of the turns here. Our opponent's reloading. Like we have to play out our lands here because we're trying to cast 4 and 5 drops. Okay, a Wasteland. That's pretty bad for us. So there's only one more Wasteland left in our opponent's deck. So there is that. Bloodstained Mire. Can't Wasteland this one. A Delver of Secrets. Sure. Back to us. We have a Brought Back. So if we draw another white card, we can like get a double Solitude off. I think we can afford to take a hit from the Delver perhaps. Or if we draw a black or a white card, we can kind of get something going. This Mystic Sanctuary, putting back the Ponder is pretty bad for us, but at least it's not an expressive iteration. That's the Ponder we knew about. There's an expressive iteration. Not spectacular for us. And then they got a Delver. Sure. So our Solitude line looks good here. If we can draw a white card and try and get the Brought Back going. We did not draw a white card. Can we afford to wait on this Solitude, or do we have to just snap it off now? I think we can afford to wait one more turn. Because I think if we kill one of these Delvers, we're still losing this game. We have to kill both of these to have a chance in this one. I think our opponent's end step, we're probably going to go and fetch the Triome as well. So this not flipping is good for us. It might mean another creature though. So this one can go and get us the Triome. We want to keep this for brought back purposes. Okay. So do we want to see what's on top of our opponent's library from the Delver of Secrets first? I think so. But our opponent's still got all their mana up anyway, so I think that's what we're doing. We're just going to see our opponent's top card. They will gain slightly more life this way. Right, let's crack this. If this doesn't resolve, we lose anyway, so. We can't get Scrubland. Get Badlands, so then we're more likely to cast our guy in a sec. And we're going to cast this because it's got flash. Let's see how we do. So we put the Evoke trigger on the bottom. This gets rid of this guy. The other option we had was waiting there, but I don't want our opponent to get another turn, another card before we get to do that, or play a land drop. So we get to kill their Delver. And now we've got a 3/2 lifelink on board. Now it dies to Lightning Bolt. And they play a Murktide. We're in a spot of bother, but we can cast the Grief next turn, which is not nothing. Sure. So they have an 8/8. So if we'd have held back on that play, it might have been a bit better. They might not have committed if we hadn't killed the Delver. So this attacks, puts us to 9. If we crack this, puts us to 8. I don't think we can win this game. Do you want to show our opponent grief? No, I think we just concede and go to the next one. Sure. So maybe we should have held back that brought back in case they had the Murktide. But if they'd have just played a land, could have got a bit in trouble. Okay, so we wanted these cards last time, if I recall rightly. And resolving a Showdown of the Skalds feels a little bit troublesome at times. But I think a lot of the stuff we have here is just good. They don't have answers for Queen Marchesa. I can't exactly remember how I boarded it last time. Hidetsugu Consumes All, kills a beast of purchase. I don't really like the Scullers. Actually, that looks about where we were at last time, I think. It's basically a case of Showdown or Queen Marchesa, but we don't have a lot of black cards, so I think keeping the Queen Marchesa in is essential there. All right, let's try again. Let's keep a 7 that's good and has a Leyline, please. And then I think we can win this game. We've already won this matchup once, so it'd be nice to get our money back on this deck. I don't like this one. I think we're going to struggle without a Leyline. And this hand, it has a Solitude on turn 1, but I don't think that's good enough. Oh, not on turn 2, sorry. This hand, on the other hand, feels a lot better. I like Fury a bit more than the other ones, especially if we're going to be starting with a Leyline in play. This seems like where I want to be. The question is what we throw back. So we're probably going to need the Fable Mirror Breaker as like a bridging card. Like the Queen Marchesa is just the worst card here, but getting rid of this makes the grief go away. So I think we're probably supposed to get rid of the grief and rely on having this for Fury. Like we can get buried by Wastelands again. That's certainly a thing that can cause us issue. Like this can get us a... The problem is we need white in our deck to cast things like Brought Back. But we don't necessarily have to crack our Bloodstained Mire for a few turns, so we can just play it by ear. There's also a very real possibility that our opponent doesn't even have a Brazen Borrower in post board because they saw nothing but creatures that do effects when they enter the battlefield. So they might not want to be bouncing those. A Delver of Secrets. Sure, that's one of the better ones. Basic Mountain is nice. I think we can wait on hitting the Delver. We can probably take 1 or 2 hits from it before we have to Fury. I don't really want to spend 2 cards to kill a Delver of Secrets, which is something this deck feels like it does more often than I would like. They did not flip their Delver, so that's great for us. It's another turn we can spend taking damage off it. Not a fan of this Wasteland. We can't crack this for a basic just yet because we don't know if we're going to want white. Another Leyline. So we can play this Fable Mirror Breaker into a Daze, but will they have Daze on the draw? I think we have to just get a land that can't be wastelanded here. So this could be a hard cast Daze as well. A Brainstorm, okay. As a subpar Brainstorm. It is going to fix their Delver, to be fair. But it's not going to be able to have 2 cards shuffled away from it. Can I have Fable? No. We're getting a Force of Will by the looks of it though. And they pitched a Delver of Secrets. Sure. So we got a 2 for 1 off of the Fury. Their Delver's going to flip this turn though. We're a long way off of casting Brought Back. So we could have got like a white jewel with the other land. But if they then play a Wasteland, we basically just lose the game, I think. So we were kind of in an awkward spot there. And we had to get a land this turn. If they play out a Delver, then I don't mind trading a Fury and a card for 2 Delvers. I don't really want to trade it for 1 when our opponent can't deploy Murktides and stuff right now. Does that change my assessment here? Or are we going to get greedy and try and get another card? It's got 4 cards in hand. I think we can take 1 more hit from the Delver. Like, we don't have the best amount of resources, but if we draw like a Grief, we can use the Leyline to make sure the way's clear for our Fury to resolve. If we pitch 2 cards and they counter it with just 1 spell, it's going to feel real bad. They can't Daze it though, to be fair, but they could Hydroblast it. Counterbalance. Well, Counterbalance is probably not going to hit our Fury. That's less of an issue for us right there. A Solitude. Does that change anything? So we can do Fury pitching Fury to kill this, then have Solitude Queen Marchesa. Or we can Solitude Queen Marchesa leaving Fury. I think I'd rather have the Fury in play because we already have the Leyline. So I'm going to try this way. They could have a Force of Will, but there's only 3 of them left in their deck. Delver of Secrets. Sure. Maybe we could have got a 2-form with a Fury there. Expressive Iterations. They're looking for a land. They're probably going to deploy that Delver. Somewhat punished for not taking one more hit off their Delver there. Pyroblast. Interesting. Then we pass the turn and maybe see what the top card of our opponent's library is. The problem with Pyroblast is it's very easy for our opponent to have ones on top of their deck because a lot of their deck is CMC1. They did not reveal from their Delver. Sure. We can get 2 for 1 with a Fury here. And we can have a Pyroblast of the top card of their deck is... I have to imagine the Dragon's Rage Channeler was the thing that was on top of their library there. Expressive Iteration, sure. Feels like we're going to get buried this game. Just under their superior card advantage. And Counterbalance. So far it hasn't done anything, but if it does anything, then it can start creating a decent advantage for them. Okay, so we can get a basic Plains here if we want it. I think we have to cast this, exiling this sadly. What do you got on top? This might be brainstorming in response here. Misty Rainforest. Now there is a question as to whether I even want to Pyroblast this Counterbalance. Now is my shot if I do, but am I better off just trying to Pyroblast the threats? We've already got through 3 Delvers though. This can... Oh, I think we should just take the shot now. Get rid of this. Because we know they got Misty Rainforest on top. Okay. So we don't have anything and our opponent has 4 cards in hand. But we've blanked a lot of our opponent's cards because of Leyline in the Void. Okay, every time I kill their guys they play more. And this is not very fair. Okay. We need something here. Oh my god. Always the turn after, isn't it? Yikes. Yeah. We're going to have to get pretty lucky to win this game, I think. Opponent's seen a good 10 cards more of their deck than us. Sure. This is only a 1 turn clock. Maybe we could have taken a hit from it, but I was more concerned about the Delver flipping. Because our opponent's going to have a number of lightning bolts here. This could be useful later on. It's a bit of a double-edged sword trying to get the Monarch against the Delver deck there. We managed it in the previous matchup because we just had removal for everything. Okay, so they have 2 counterbalances in their deck. Interesting. Sure. Well, our 4-drop is not going to get hit by counterbalance. Counterbalance seems a really weird thing to board in against a deck that's got like a load of big evoke creatures. Like you can counter the Ephemerates, I guess, and the Brought Backs, but it just doesn't seem really worth it to me. Okay. If we play this out and our opponent has a Lightning Bolt, they get to have the Monarchy. I think what we do here is cast the Leyline. So we're going to want... So if we get a second black, if we draw our 4-drop, we can actually cast it. And we need to get a second black here. So what do we want, a second red or a second white? I think we want a second red. Black, 1. This does let our opponent see the top card of their library and shuffle it away with the Misty Rainforest. Steam Vent. So they're probably going to shuffle that way. Sure. So this means Brazen Borrower won't allow them to get a Dragon's Rage Channeler or a... Okay, I'm not a big fan of this Lightning Bolt to the face here. So if they've got one more Lightning Bolt, then they can kill us in 2 turns. I was kind of hoping to... So that's why I didn't play the Queen Marchesa out there, because if we play it out and they just bolt it, then we just lose to the Monarchy. Whereas if we hold up our Ephemerate, we can at least, like, hope to counter a burn spell on it. Like, it's not great, don't get me wrong, but it's what we're working with here. We're just getting outclassed by a better deck is what's happening. We spent a lot of time stuck because of the wasteland they had, and they forced us to play into some different... Well, we got our basics, and we weren't really punished for that. We just kind of drew a load of blank cards because our deck has a lot of blanks in it, really. Because Ephemerate on its own doesn't really do anything. The Pitchcast Elementals, when you don't have the mana, don't do anything on their own. Ley lines don't really do anything when you draw them. So we kind of like had a lot of things going wrong. If our opponent's got a Lightning Bolt, we die. If our opponent's got a Lightning Bolt, we die anyway. So we may as well play this guy out. The one way we get punished on this is if they have a bounce spell. Okay, they got days, sure. We cannot pay. So Lightning Bolt kills us, otherwise we just got to sit for a few turns of this guy peppering us with damage. But they've got 5 cards in hand, like we're just getting so outclassed here. There's a Lightning Bolt. GG's. So we are done. Right, and that's a 2-3, which honestly feels about fair. Let's have a little chat about the deck before I go to bed. So, I was relatively unimpressed by this deck, to be honest. However, I should caveat the fact that we ran into 4 Force of Will decks like blue control-y type decks, 2 of them. Like Stoneblade is sort of halfway between control and aggro. You know, it's pretty mid-rangey, but it's got a lot of disruptive elements. And we run into Shark still. Both of those decks are kind of dropped completely off the face of the meta because they're so bad against the initiative. So whereas our deck looks like it's probably all right against the initiative because we can kind of do our scam thing unchecked, more or less. But we didn't really get to do our scam thing at any point. We didn't get to make a turn 1 Grief and blink it at any point in this entire league, which is a shame. I think that play on its own could just win you games. So we definitely drew on the lower side of variance in a lot of our games, I would say. And our matchups were a bit awkward. Like, if you're pitching 2 cards to, like, evoke an elemental and they just have, like, decent ways of countering that or whatever, then it kind of doesn't really work too well. And we play against a lot of white removal, which exiles our guys, which makes Brought Back less good in terms of just using it as like a card advantage engine or like repairing guys getting killed. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I was a bit worried about the mana base because we're trying to cast white spells as early as turn 2. And we've got this swamp and we've got this mountain, and they mean that you can't do that. And you kind of have to keep hands with them in because it didn't seem like we had enough mana in our deck because we're trying to cast, like, you know, we were casting our big elementals, but we only had 22 lands in our deck. Now, yes, you can do some brought back shenanigans on fetch lands, but I don't think that's enough. I think you need more mana sources here because sometimes your brought back plans aren't necessarily going to work. There's an argument that maybe I should have been more aggressive trying to play my elementals out and not really getting value for them. But then we're paying, like, in that case, like 3 cards to get like a 3/3 double striker into a deck that's got like a load of lightning bolts and ponders or source to plowshares and ponders. So it just didn't feel like what we were doing really came together, to be honest. I quite like the idea of like doing the pitch elementally stuff. Sculler felt pretty weak. It felt very easy for it to get removed and people just ignored it. Its body was pretty pathetic. I understand it's in there because it's early interaction and it's black and white. But I think the problem with this deck is it doesn't do anything in the first few turns of the game unless you're 2-for-1ing yourself. And yes, you can sometimes 3-for-1 yourself and then end up with a big guy and maybe like blow up multiple of their things, which is cool. But it doesn't always pan out that way. And because we weren't really playing against decks that were just, okay, we're going to mulligan to playing our creature, we're going to play our creature and get you, we couldn't really, you know, that's the initiative that I'm talking about. We couldn't really, you know, play those sorts of games against people because we weren't playing those sorts of decks. We were playing Delver decks where they can run a threat or 2 out and then you kill them and then immediately play some more threats and all their threats are good enough and it's quite easy for them to play around Fury and they've got just higher like card quality because they've got all these cantrips and stuff and they're not playing all these janky brought back ephemerate stuff, which the ceiling on is incredibly high but the floor is a blank card. So you've got a massive window of variance that we're playing this deck in. Now, obviously, Fable and Mirror Breaker can sort of help that. But, again, we never got to do, like... We never copied a single thing with Fable and Mirror Breaker. It always died before we got to have it without Summoning Sickness. So that wasn't great either. Like, I think, you know... I think this deck could have gone 3-2 relatively well. I think our matchups definitely didn't help. But, like... I don't know, this deck just feels like the ceiling of it is quite high and the floor is very low and I don't think that sort of level of consistency is where I want to be. Like, we mulliganed a fair bit. Like, I think we mulliganed almost every single game to just try and get something better. We didn't have enough mana to really cast our spells. We didn't have a stable enough mana base to cast our spells. We didn't have spells to cast in the first few turns sometimes. And we just fell behind very often. And we never got to do like the broken thing this deck's supposed to do. Now, I know that that broken thing is strong, but I don't think you can build an entire deck like this where you don't really do anything if you're not pitch casting your elementals. I think that's a problem, to be honest. I don't think that's a realistic way to approach Legacy right now. But again, I think this deck's probably okay against Initiative because you're just going to get rid of their guys early on. You don't have to worry about counter spells and things like that, so you can have your ephemerate turns and actually have them reliable. So yeah, that's more or less my thoughts on it. Like, the sideboards seem fine, but I think for me the core problem is the deck itself, it's very high variance. It's very susceptible to getting picked apart by certain things because you're relying on a lot of pieces. And your rebuild, Showdown of Skalds is pretty good for a rebuild, but it's a 4-mana card in our 22 land deck. Now, there was a game where the Devil Play just wastelanded us like twice, and then we didn't get to play Magic anymore. And that feels like a problem because you have to get non-basics, really, to get your brought backs going. Because quite often you'll have one of these fetch lands like a Bloodstained Mire that doesn't get you a plains, as we run into a couple of times. So this deck is a no from me, I'm afraid. I think there is some stuff to be played in decks like this. Like one of the builds I've been tinkering with, I haven't quite got round to playing out yet, is a build that kind of does some of these similar things but has green in it. So we've got like some good green cards. And Endurance as a 3-mana flash guy is a lot more realistic than having 8 5-drops in your 22 land deck. And obviously the deck I built, unsurprisingly, has got more lands in it. So there is that too. So I think this deck just... If you run well with this deck, then you'll crush loads of stuff. But if you run average with it, I think that you'll end up, you know, with a record like 2-3 type thing. I think it's too inconsistent unless your meta is basically absent of blue decks, really. Now, like we did grind away against the Sharksteel deck quite nicely, but against tempo decks where they're forcing you to play your spells and 2-for-1 yourself to get stuff off the board, and then they can just counter the thing, and then you're just left with nothing. It's not really my sort of deck either, so I probably, you know, seeing it and playing it for the first time, so it's certainly not an optimal play pattern from me. But I think there's some real gaps and problems with this deck that we're trying to plug with like Queen Marchesa and Sculler and things like that. So we're trying to plug some gaps, and we don't have any way of accelerating into these things. Like even if we had some Chrome Moxes in there instead of something, just to power us out a little bit, but then we're already pitching so many cards. That's just not really a great strategy either. I don't really want Spirit Guides and Petals here because, again, that's a lot of cards that don't pitch. I think it's just trying to do too much, and when it works, it'll be great, but I think the likelihood of it reliably working repeatedly over the course of a lot of games is very low. Like, by all means, you can run 5 rounds and smash people, 10 rounds and smash people, whatever, but when you look at it over a longer period of game, like 100 games or so, I think your win rate is going to be not great because of the inherent flaws in the deck. That being said, if you like to just jam some scam stuff like this, yeah, why not? You know what I mean? Like, I can certainly see the attraction and the enjoyment of playing this deck, but it's not for me, and I don't think it's the optimal sort of scam build yet, really. All right, I think we're done now. I'm very tired. This was supposed to be a quick one, and we ended up going basically to time twice, so... All right, thank you very much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, do these things, help me out. Thank you very much. All right, goodbye.